back to the Sports Show. Time to talk about volleyball. Of course, the Super League finals on this weekend in Bendigo. So we thought we'd go to one of the superstars of Adelaide. Regan Fathers joins us. Regan, how are you, mate?
Good, thanks, guys. How are you?
Hey, pretty exciting time for volleyball. The last couple of weeks have been fantastic.
Yeah, there's been a lot going on. You know, as you mentioned, the Escape Australian Volleyball Super League really taking a little bit of a different dynamic this year, different format. It's been going very well for us so far.
Before we get to Bendigo, let's talk about last weekend, mate.
Yeah.
Big crowd.
Yeah,
at the
very
arena.
big crowd. Yeah, we managed to set a domestic record for volleyball attendance last week, and so Adelaide 36ers arena, and our game versus the WA Steel. I think we clocked just over 1,000 people walking through the gates, so unlike anything we've ever experienced.
All thanks to the SA Sports Show. That's what it is, Phil.
Not like you to want to take credit for something you didn't do. So out of character, mate.
No, we've been looking after the volleyball.
We have.
We've been looking after it because we got time for it. That's what it is.
Yep.
And this is a big event. The Super League now is huge and growing, obviously, with the crowd that we've got on last weekend. What are you expecting this weekend? Is it a similar
Bendigo.
in all states? Are we going to get a big crowd there for this?
Yeah, well, I mean, this has been the biggest attendance that we've had so far, but compared to previous years, different cities that are hosting have had, record attendances. So I'm expecting, bigger and better when it comes to Bendigo. It's been continuously growing, so there's no reason that won't happen in finals when it comes to semis.
All right, let's get on to it, mate. The semi-final, we're up against Canberra, mate. And of course, they get the... try and find a polite way of saying the players that go to the institute that stay in Canberra for the volleyball program. Nicely stacked, mate. They got us last year. Chances this time around?
Yeah. Well, as you mentioned, got us last year in a very close game in the 5-setter for the final. So a little bit of a vendetta there for us. But we played them once so far this year. Got maximum competition points against them. So just hoping to repeat like we did a few weeks ago.
How do you study against these teams, mate? You look at vision of these guys playing. I know the footy clubs, they all look at vision and how they play.
Yeah, well, we have video sessions before every game. We get sent statistical analysis of what different players do in different rotations. And then, more specifically, like I would look at certain players that I'm going to be matched up against. So in certain situations of the game, what we need to do against them to stop them and how we can have offensive success as well.
The footage you've seen against Canberra, mate, we stack up pretty good?
Yeah, well, I mean, like I said, we did very well against them last time. So coming into finals, there's a very long list of players that can play that are listed on their players' forms. So every team's going to bring out their gun players for finals. So we might see a couple of different faces than we saw last week, but we'll prepare all the same.
Victoria up against WA, what are you thinking in that game?
Yeah, well, Victoria and WA, two of the stronger teams in the competition. We've had close games with both of them. So my bets would be on WA based off the way they performed against us last week, but anything goes in finals.
Mate, we don't see it. We watch the game, but we don't see it. Is there a bit of yap going on out there? Is there a little bit of gamesmanship? I know in most sports we have a little bit of yap. I wasn't one for it myself. But
you've caught up.
But it does. Does it go on? Is there?
It does.
Two guys up at the net here. Eh?
Yeah, it's different, right? Because it's not necessarily a physical sport, so there's not that physical confrontation that sometimes sparks that. But there's always rivalries between players, between teams, and certain individuals get into it more. Some like to stick to their own side of things, but there's definitely a bit of yap. It's difficult to hear. Obviously, you're a little far from the game, but you can usually see players having.
And we have a yapper.
Sorry, me?
No, not necessarily you, but do we have a yapper? Is there someone in our team that likes to have a little bit of a chat?
Oh, there's definitely a couple. Yeah, definitely a couple, depending on the situation.
Regan's one of them.
Yeah, that's right. Good, I like it.
Mate, if you had a preference, you guys get past Canberra, you got a preference? WA, Victoria?
I'd like to play WA. We went down to them 3-2 last week, so that's a tough one for us to swallow. They've gone undefeated all season. If we could get them in the final and ruin that undefeated record and get a little bit of redemption for ourselves as well, I think that'd be a really nice way to cap it off.
All right, what about you, mate? Bit of a dodgy knee there for a moment.
Just in the first set, bit of an awkward jump, but nothing too severe. So just making sure I settle that down coming into this weekend and get back to full so I can do what I can.
Hey, mate, just digressing from a moment, I saw a bit of footage on you just recently. Mm-hmm. You know how they do the sit and reach and the jump test and all that? There's a picture of you, mate. It's in a basketball stadium where you're nearly at the top of the backboard. So we talk about athletes being able to dunk it. There's a photo of you where you're maybe this far off the top of the backboard. What's your vertical leap?
I haven't measured it in quite some time, but it's probably around a metre. Yeah, on a good day.
Can you get to the top? Can you get to the top of the board?
Top of the backboard? No, I don't think
close.
so. I think I used to be able to get pretty close.
Yeah.
But yeah, I honestly haven't tried.
Most
recently,
basketballs can't do it. It's not. And
Amazing,
at 6'5", it's pretty impressive. So it's one of the great things about volleyball. Mate, domestically, Norwood Bears got over Mount Lofty in a 5-setter, if you don't mind. Went to 16-14 in the fifth.
Yeah, that was an exhilarating game. I think we had 2 match points. I think they may have even had 1 match point themselves. I can't exactly remember. It's all a bit of a blur. But, a long-standing rivalry with Mount Lofty, the Norwood Bears have. So I've got lots of friends on that team. There's half of our teams now are playing together in the Australian Volleyball League. So big game for us to get up and over.
Sorry, mate. What's your travel plans, mate, here for Bendigo? When do you move? How's it all happen?
Yeah, so I believe Friday, just after lunchtime, we're jumping on a plane, landing in Melbourne, and then from there we'll take a bus. And then I think we're flying back after the final on Sunday evening or potentially Monday morning.
Okay.
Mate, can you see the league growing? There's been, if we use the Matildas, for example, just recently in the soccer, I know that's on the world stage, but just had this massive explosion. And volleyball's starting to get that, we'll talk about your time in Finland in a minute and your time in Austria, but do you sense that it's starting to go on that growth spurt again?
Yeah, absolutely. I was talking to one of our coaches just the other day as well, and looking up at the crowd on Saturday, there was 80-90% of the people I didn't recognise. So the more people that are starting to come along to it, they're bringing more and more people getting engaged. The South Australian Volleyball League is growing in divisions in itself. So it used to be just 3 divisions. Now we've got an extra 3 below that. So 6-7 division league with more players playing the game, more interest. I think it's just going to compound and continue growing.
Have you seen my partner's son? He's playing volleyball socially on a Sunday.
Yeah.
And he's going, we can't even get a court to play on anymore. A couple of years ago, they're everywhere. It looks like it's taken off in that space as well.
Yeah. Well, that's why the state leagues had to expand, because social became so competitive that they had to give that an extra outlet for players to play at the next higher level, to also free up courts for the people that aren't quite ready yet to step into a state level.
Hey, mate, COVID is long gone now, but we're just having a quick chat before we came on air. Just share this with the listeners, mate. You're playing in Finland, and you get a phone call from your manager. Take us. What happens after?
Yeah, so it's the back end of the season. COVID's starting to have its presence in Finland. It's just kind of broken through the barriers and through the borders, and at the gym in the squat rack, get a phone call from my agent, and I'm like, I'll call him back later. And he texts me, he's like, no, the borders are shutting in 24 or 48 hours. Season's over. We need to get you back home to Australia. So that really cut that short.
Wow. So 24 hours overseas, pack up your bags and you're out of here.
Yeah.
Well, mate, you've got to pack up your bags on Friday and get to Bendigo.
Good luck, mate.
Right. Look forward to having you back next week.
Thanks so much, boys.
How much you won the grand final by. Regan Feathers, our guest. Volleyball is taking off in South Australia. Stay with us. Still plenty to come.